Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are joining us from. And welcome to today's webinar. My name is Josh from Business Review Webinars, and I will be your host. It is our pleasure to have ThreatMark with us today, who will be presenting this webinar entitled Top 3 Most Damaging Frauds in Online Banking. Today's guest speaker is Lukas, who is Cybersecurity and Fraud Specialist. And before we begin, I'd like to welcome you to our webinar platform on 24. You'll notice that this webinar is browser-based, so if you disconnect for any reason, please just click on the link that you received via email to rejoin the session. In order to ask questions, you can send them in via the questions widget. Just type them into the box at the top right-hand corner of your screen and click submit. We will allocate some time at the end of the session to address any questions or thoughts that you may have had. And please use the yellow help widget if you require any assistance, and you can move, resize and maximize any of the windows in front of you to get a better view of the slides. But for now, please allow me to welcome Lukas.
Perfect. Josh, thank you very much. Okay, so again, my name is Lukas Jakubicek and I work for ThreatMark as a pre-sales engineer, and today I will be talking about top 3 most damaging frauds in online banking. So let's dive in. Before that, I will just let's say highlight the agenda of today's webinar. First, I will introduce company of ThreatMark very briefly, and then I will jump directly to the advanced phishing, SIM swap, tech support fraud as it was promised into the previous information about this webinar. So jumping to the information about ThreatMark, we were founded in 2015 by former ethical hackers. We have HQ in Czech Republic. We are active on 4 continents. And currently, we are protecting more than 25 million end customers. And in ThreatMark, we have 65 experts. Those guys are focused on just only one solution. This is AFS that, let's say, prevents fraud and detects cyber threats. And my presentation will be concluded with some information about the product itself. Annually, our solution across our customers is scoring 1 billion logins and transactions together. And we have our own dedicated security operation team, which analyze new cyber threats and do its own research. Some milestones: we were listed as a representative vendor for the online fraud detection area in the Gartner's market guide for year 2020. And also we've been listed in the Technology Fast 50 for 2020 for Central Europe by Deloitte. But let's jump right into our topic today. So this is just a let's say landscape of cyber attacks as I see it. You have these 2 bubbles, let's say, on this diagram. And if you would like to steal money online, you can choose from these 2 different approaches. First might be soft skill, a second might be hard skill. When I'm talking about soft skill, I have in mind, for instance, social engineering-based types of attacks, which, for instance, there's a good example of that. This microphone in this let's say yellow circle stands for vishing. So basically somebody who's trying to lure some information from you using a phone, for instance. This is a perfect example of social engineering based attack. On the other hand, you have a hard skill based attack, let's say, and you need to be a very tech savvy person to compile your own malware. And the malware can be then deployed either on mobile or on the desktop as in the browser-based application. But you need to really be able to create malware. This is not really easy. That's why it's called hard skill. But I think that the successful attacks might be only when these 2 categories are intersecting. And these 3 symbols, I mean the symbols with the fish and SIM card and tech support fraud, these are the topics that I would like to address today. So we will be talking again about advanced form of phishing. We will be discussing about SIM swap attack vector, and then we conclude this with the tech fraud scam or tech support fraud, whatever you would like to call it. So let's start with the advanced phishing. Let's start with the, let's say, statistical information first. What is without any question is that the phishing is growing in terms of complexity and scalability across geographies. And what we saw, not only between the years 2019 and 2020, that there's a major jump. The attackers basically like the phishing very much, and it's well, let's say the current, let's say, COVID situation is definitely not helping with the trend, because what we can see from the start of the year 2021, it's major boost, like 40% more of phishing cases that we could track, not only inside our security operations center, but also from other vendor statistics. So that's very dangerous thing. I mean, phishing is very dangerous, and this is supported with the numbers that we can extract it as well. 90% of companies experienced phishing attacks in last year. 96% of let's say the phishing was involved in attack in the portion of 96 cases. This is, again, very significant number. And 88% companies faced spear phishing attack. Spear phishing means that it was tailored to this company or to the very individual. And what is also without any question is that the phishing are usually a starting point of much sophisticated attacks. So it might start at a phishing, and then it might progress into some sophisticated, let's say, section of steps. You can find out all these details in the URL provided down there in the slide. But let's move again to the phishing. So again, these two bubbles are here. The fish is there as well in the intersection. And I would like to justify why I put the soft skill and hard skill next to each other, and with the consequence of phishing. You need to build a trust. If you would like to launch a phishing campaign, you can do that by making exact replica of the legitimate site. If you're fraudster, that's the step one that you need to take. And from the hard skill group or category, you have to use this, let's say, technology, which allows you to collect the data and send the data to you as the attacker. So something like, let's say, a PHP form that is able to send the data to you. Let's have the situation in which you have the demo banking interface. Conveniently, I have prepared my Bank A24 legitimate site. It's a virtual demo bank, and you need to really, you don't need to be very tech savvy to make an exact replica of this page. You just need to install add-on into your Chrome browser, and basically using 2 clicks, you have exact replica at your disposal. Next, what you are going to do is to search for some form which will be able to send the data to your email address. And if you put a really simple search term into the search box in Google, PHP form simple example, on the first link you will get a pretty sufficient example which you can basically copy paste, and if you implement it in a very simple way with the replica of the site that we've created in a step before, you have a functioning phishing site. But it's not easy as that, and that's why I put the word advanced in this, let's say, chapter, because now on the left side of my screen you can see the list of files that we were able to retrieve from the actual phishing site. So all these files are located on the server when this phishing site was launched from. And you can see that I've selected the first file called htaccess, which basically controls how the server will behave. And by behave, I mean, and let me show you a perfect example, what's inside of this file. There's just some configuration sentences saying that, for instance, if you are Google or Microsoft or Bing or whatever, if you approach this phishing site, you will be blocked. You will be denied. There is nothing for you, Google. Attackers are preventing these sites to be found. They're not want to, let's say, be analyzed by the Google crawlers because they want to remain hidden. This activity of theirs. Another example, which basically does the same thing, refers for the file called antibots.php. Again, if the crawler will came to the site from the specific IP or the IP range, it will be served with the information 404 not found. In other words, there is nothing for you, crawler. The site is empty. That's again same principle. They are masking their activities for the crawlers. Another file in this investigation, it's called result_new, and it's basically a file with a plain text information collected from the victims. And you see, this is the, let's say, snippet from the texture file. And you can see that there are all information collected from the phishing site itself. So there is, for instance, name of your first employer, name of your oldest nephew, grandfather's first name, and things like that available for the attacker on the very server. So even if the mail with this collected information will not land in this attacker inbox, still the attacker has a perfect opportunity to open it directly from the server and read it in this plain text form by himself. There are a couple of files containing the word SMS inside. This is, let's say, very interesting tactics. Sometimes it's a, let's say, called multi-step or multi-staged phishing attack. And basically, these files are for attacker to be able to enroll his mobile application or on his or her, of course, mobile. So how it works in reality, let's imagine that you have a victim, and the victim lands on the phishing site. That's on the left side of my presentation. And the attacker opens the legitimate site. So this is the scenario. So the victim first puts the username and password into these fields on this phishing site, and this information is then immediately sent to the attacker, and the attacker will use that immediately, will log in into the banking application, and will try to enroll mobile application. But for that, he or she, the attacker, will need to have the SMS confirmation code, which he needs from the victim, because victim will receive the SMS code confirming the enrolling of the application from the bank. So he asks, using the very same phishing site, for this finalization of authentication. So your bank needs another confirmation input, and this is the SMS. So the victim will receive the SMS, will put the one-time password into the field, still in the phishing site, and hit on save or submit or something like that. Then this information will be directly again sent to the fraudster, and fraudster will use the number to enroll the mobile application. So now the attacker has successfully enrolled the application, and he's able to perform payment, since usually the mobile banking application are using second factor of authentication per mobile phone, built-in mobile phone. So usually some kind of a face scan or some kind of a PIN or fingerprint, but this is, let's say, associated with the very device, meaning that the attacker can authenticate or authorize the payment using his own fingerprint or using his own face, and it will be executed like that. What we have seen recently was a very special case abusing Google App Engine. How it works in the real life: the fraudster uses a specialized phishing kit. He builds specific phishing templates and upload them to a GitHub, for instance, or some other data repository, and using a very simplistic one-line command, the attacker can deploy these phishing sites via the Google App Engine project, which is a platform as a service, and really easily can create lots of phishing sites. And these phishing sites can be then distributed via email as usual. What is interesting on this kind of attack vector is that, first of all, it scales. Using just a few lines of code, you can generate a huge amount of phishing sites. So that's for A. And for B, it's very hard to take down these sites because firstly, it's located on the trusted domain, belongs to the Google, appspot.com, which seems trusted. And at the same time, all these subdomains automatically get granted with the SSL certification by Google. So they are, let's say, considered as a trusted. So they're using HTTPS protocol. So it's yeah, as I said, it's hard to take down those sites. Moving on to the SIM swap kind of attack, the situation is like that in real life. The attacker has one goal in this scenario, and the goal is steal one-time password sent via SMS. And how the attacker might do that? There are, let's say, simplistic 3 steps how the attacker might do this SIM swap, and these are: first, the attacker can call the carrier company for technical support and ask for it directly. I know it sounds maybe funny, but it is still viable option in some, let's say, developing countries. So you will just call them, hey, this is John Doe, I need to transfer my SIM card to another mobile phone, and it's done. Other possible option, if this is not a viable option, is to convince the operator to port the SIM, to basically do the same thing, to swap the SIM, using some, let's say, personal information that is misused by attacker, and you see that as a source of this information, the text file from the phishing campaign, as I was showing you before, can be used. As a third step, the attacker might use bribery. He or she might bribe an employee of the phone operator company, and the outcome is still the same. What will happen if this will be successful? Victim's SIM card loses carrier connection, so the mobile phone of the victim will be totally disconnected, like no service. And in the same time, the attacker SIM will assume the identity of the original SIM card. So what will happen? The phone number will be like transformed from one SIM to another, and consequently, all communication is redirected from this, let's say, number from this SIM to this another attacker SIM, and it also might contain one-time passwords sent via SMS. So this information can be received by an attacker. So this is not a let's say full attack vector. This is just a portion. But if you combine multiple things, like for instance the already mentioned phishing with this one, it might be devastating. What we also saw, what we have seen recently, is this, let's say, troubling example of misusage of the SMS redirection service, which is called Sakari. I'm not sure about the pronunciation, but I'm doing my best. What is happening, or what happened? Basically, hacker submits the victim phone number into the list of database of this service. And then as a second step, in the very same service, hacker needed to sign a letter of authorization. In other words, just take some box, basically telling that you will not misuse this service. And then consecutively, hacker can start receiving redirected SMSs throughout this service without victim even knowing about it, without losing any connectivity, without losing any signal. It's perfectly described on this link that is provided in the slide as well on the vice.com, and it's pretty scary because you cannot do much about it. Similar, let's say severe fraud. The third fraud that I would like to cover in this webinar is the tech support fraud, sometimes called tech support scam, or there are variants which are describing the very similar scenario. And this might be like this, already described in this channel by Kit Boga and Jim Browning. So these guys are covering the topic pretty well, and I definitely recommend you to watch some videos. They are entertaining, but in the same time very frightening. What is possible and how these guys are doing that. There are many variants and types of these attacks, and I will introduce to you just one of them, one of many. And this variant starts with you doing some research. You prepare yourself for the attack. What you can do, you can go to the dark web and you can buy so-called fulls, which means a package of data containing all possible information that the attackers might offer to you. And you can see I've highlighted it on this slide. You can expect that you will get first name, last name, card number, city, postal code, state, phone, all these data which can be very harmful in the wrong hands, and all this data, or almost all this, all the data can be considered as a sensitive or personal. What will happen next if the attacker has this data available? It might, let's say, install the application which will allow to the attacker spoof the caller ID. It's very simplistic. You can change the caller ID in a very simple way using there are a couple of applications to do this. Next step will be like this, and this is the actual scenario of the tech support scam. Someone, and the attacker in this case on the left side, will call the victim and will introduce himself as for instance, John Smith, and he will say, okay, so I'm calling you, John Doe. This is customer care of the bank XY, and there is a problem with something. You can put anything there, basically. You can use your imagination. And on the other side, the victim sees, let's say that the attacker calls from the bank phone number, because, yeah, as I mentioned, the spoof caller ID will be in place, and the victim might then think, okay, so he knows my name and other details that attacker could retrieve from his previous activity. So, okay, I'm talking to the bank right now. And then it's the next move to the attacker, who will advise or ask the victim to install some program for fixing the situation. And this program might be, for instance, TeamViewer, or basically any other program that allows you to control another computer remotely. So when the victim install such program, attacker asks for the credentials to that program, and when the victim hands over this information to the fraudster can connect directly to the computer of the victim and can do whatever whatever one's there. Even it can join into the already authenticated banking session and change some things, or initiate the transaction, for instance, in already authenticated session. And in a final step, he will ask the victim to confirm with the OTP number directly via these means. There is also great infographics on our website, so if you're interested in this scheme, you can visit the URL provided below. Okay, so I've described these three fraud, but what these attacks have in common. No question about it, they are very, very hard to detect. But they're also sharing this, let's say, feature of theirs, and this is that eventually attacker has to operate, physically interact with the banking application. So at some point, he or she needs to really open the banking application and put the credentials, somehow navigate throughout the application. And that is exactly where ThreatMark can can do its magic, because what we are doing, what our solution can do, and seamlessly, without any intrusion to the end user, we can analyze mouse movements. We can analyze how specifically the user types on the keyboard, typing rhythms. We can also analyze specific typing mistakes that the attacker does, or let's say typing mistakes that are typical for the user. And all this we bundle into this profile of the user together, as I've mentioned, with the specificities around your mouse movements, specific curves that you are making, how fast you are scrolling, to which angle you are, let's say, landing on the buttons on the page, like that. So we take this information and we create a profile based on which we are analyzing every new session. So if the attacker will log into the banking, regardless he has the credentials, he has the second factor of authentication, we continuously analyze his movements. And if we see that there is something, let's say, fishy about his or her behavior, like strange navigation using mouse, strange typing habits, we will immediately issue a red flag, however you call it. And this red flag can be then used, if integrated using automated means like API, it can be used for initiation of some, let's say, special routine. And by special routine, I mean that if it's integrated like that, you can decide based on information provided from our solution if you will block the session, for instance, or you will send the session for or you will somehow investigate the payment. So that's the use case that we can deal with this solution. And this is exactly how our customers are using our solution. So in other words, we can detect fraudulent behavior on multiple levels. So not only on the level of behavior biometrics, but also from the perspective of behavior profile. So if it's typical for you to do your banking transactions during the day, and suddenly we see that we see some activities in 3 p.m. 3 a.m. in the morning from another part of the globe, we will definitely initiate an alert and say there is something wrong with the current session, because it is not matching your historical habit information that we've previously collected with our solution. Device fingerprint is another part that the ThreatMark solution can investigate. So again, we are doing these, let's say, information collections based on the information that we see about the user, one of which might be the device fingerprint. So if we know the device from the previous sessions, we can say, okay, so this device you can trust because we saw the device 6 times in a row before, or vice versa. We can say, this is the device that we have never seen before. Don't trust it. The next part is dedicated to the behavior biometrics, so the actual way how the user interacts with the input methods, such as mouse and keyboard. I didn't mention that, but we are protecting mobile channel as well, as it was described at the very beginning. But for mobile channel, we can also analyze various things which can validate, verify the identity. We can use the sensorical data to measure how specifically your hands are shaking. We are using the gyroscope and accelerometer to validate your identity based on these micro shakes that are very unique for you. And there are other markers we analyze, such as how exactly you swipe, which hand you're using when you're banking, or if the mobile phone is operated by a real person or a robot. By that I mean that if the mobile phone is operated by a real person, regardless what you do with your mobile phone, the mobile phone will be moving, even though that the moves will be very subtle, like really these micro shakes. You need to somehow move with the phone if you would like to execute the money, or if you would like to do some other things in the application. Unlike the malware, if the malware is in the phone installed, it can perform some activities on the user's behalf without being moved with the mobile phone, obviously. So that's something that we can do as well. And last thing that ThreatMark solution can analyze as well is the actual payment. So we are scanning the payment for anomalies. If there is, let's say, not typical amount being sent, or to the account that is, let's say, new for this particular customer, our solution will take this information into account and generate something which we call risk score. And the risk score is proprietary metric that we use. This is like the outcome of all this information taken into consideration. We are using machine learning to analyze the data sets from all these, let's say, different angles, and in real time we are evaluating all this information. So and based on this, we initiate this risk score. And then it might work in the way that, if you can imagine that this is the user, banking user accessing the banking interface when ThreatMark is implemented. The ThreatMark solution works with multiple information sets, like I've said, the device fingerprint, the behavior biometrics. It does the deep behavior profiling of the user, so from which location, when exactly, how much you are paying, and things like that. And it will generate a risk score. What banking institution might do with this information, it can be, as I've mentioned already, it can be consumed by automated means using RESTful API communication tunnel with the backend components, such as authentication component or authorization component. And in this situation, for instance, authentication component can ask our solution, hey, ThreatMark, what do you think about this particular login attempt? And we will respond with a low risk score. And the low risk will tell to the bank, okay, so user can log in seamlessly without any escalation of additional authentication element. Second scenario might be when the user shows some kind of a medium risk. And for that, we can retrieve the information. Okay, we are really not 100% sure. We need to escalate authentication element. So yes, the authentication element might be escalated if integrated properly with the banking backend. And third option, this is obviously all optional. These are just like suggestions from ThreatMark. If there is really let's say, all evidence in line, which says that there is a problematic session telling that the financial malware is installed in the browser or in the mobile phone, or there is a remote access activity detected on the browser, you can decide to deny this session automatically by ThreatMark. And based on our experience from our customers, we can tell that majority of the login attempts are legitimate ones. So 90% of all attempts will be legitimate and the access will be granted. So not even you will improve the security with the solution implemented like that, but you will also improve the user experience, because those users will not be bothered with the retyping of the one-time password sent by the SMS. Approximately 10%, basically the rest of it, will be asked for another authentication element, and a really small portion of that will be denied, of course, based on the setup by the bank. And I will conclude that with a number which we have from one of our customers, that they were spending 1 million euros just for these confirmation SMSs. And with implementation of the solution, I mean ThreatMark solution, they're saving almost 1 million euros for let's say not to sending these SMSs. And in the same time, they reduce the average time of login from 10 seconds to 5 seconds because of this, because the user are not obliged to retype the one-time passwords to the banking interface. Okay, so that was it from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any question, I will be happy to answer them in this next block of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lukas. That was fantastic. Just a reminder for the audience, in order to ask any questions, you can send them in via our questions widget. Just type them into the box at the top right-hand corner of your screen and click submit. In the meantime, we've got some here. First one is, how likely it is that the stolen details are sold elsewhere, not used directly, but sold to other hackers?
Well, if you are once targeted by the attacker and there is some, let's say, tool that can collect and harvest the data, and this data will eventually land into the inbox of the attacker, it might be a logical step from the perspective of attacker, compile all this loot in one package and offer that to the darknet, if this is not a, let's say, one lone wolf operation. So I would say it's very likely, but of course, as with everything, it depends.
Thank you very much. This next one is user education. Do you think it's something worth investing in?
Well, definitely. I would say it's a crucial element, but it's not, let's say, preventing from all these use cases. But it's a key part of every bank communication efforts. I would say even though that it might seem futile, bank really needs to educate their customers. And I think that well, you at least you can remember some cases when your own bank published some information about the phishing, about the specific cases of social engineering-based attacks and things like that. So yes, it's crucial, at least from my point of view.
Okay, fantastic. And just another quick reminder to the audience, remember you can still submit questions via the Q&A widget. That'll be in the top right-hand corner of your screen. But for now, another one here. How does your solution approach, or what do you think How does your solution approach, or what do you think where is the balance in protecting the users and their privacy?
Okay, so since we are a security company and we are dealing with the real, let's say, sensitive data, don't take this lightly. So therefore, we are collecting the data in, let's say, statistical level. So no sensitive data are shared or collected by us. In other words, we care not only what you type, we don't care about it completely, what you type exactly, but we rather analyze how specifically you do that. And that's how we can validate the information about your digital identity. And moreover, all the data that we are collecting about users are pseudonymized, which is perfectly aligned with the GDPR legislation. And this data is stored possibly on premise of the customer. So the data doesn't go outside if this is the bank wish.
Okay, thank you very much. And this one here, how about malware? What does it fit into the picture?
Okay, so I believe it was visible on one of the very first slides that I had that we still see malware being in the wild, attacking the banking customers. But I can say that the social engineering-based attacks are more prevalent. So it's easier. I would say it's easier to convince a person, I mean, bank client, somehow to lure the credentials or convince him or her to hand over the credentials or send the money directly, than for the attacker bypassing sophisticated technological barriers protecting banking systems. So it's, again, I said it already, it's only a logical step from the attackers that they're focusing on the weakest link, which is, was and will be the user, the end customer, basically.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That was all the questions we had in for today, but don't worry, you can still submit them via the questions widget on the right hand side. That'll be able to be done via the on-demand version of this webinar as well. So that just leaves me to thank you, Lukas, for what was a great presentation, and to ThreatMark for sponsoring this session. To the attendees, you will receive an email shortly telling you how you can access the on-demand version of this webinar, or you can access this through our website, which is www.business-review-webinars.com. And we look forward to sharing further webinars with you, so please do keep an eye out on the website just mentioned, and follow us on Twitter at BRWebinars for daily updates, and join our LinkedIn group Business Review Webinars. Thank you once again, and we hope you all have a nice day.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.